When a mother's last hope was carried through the city gates in absolute silence, a stranger stepped into her path and changed death forever. Long ago, in the sun-drenched hill country of Galilee, a journey was underway. The early afternoon light painted the green valleys in shades of gold. Dusty dirt roads, worn by centuries of travel, stretched across the landscape, winding past lush olive groves and ancient stone villages. Along this path, a great multitude was moving. This was not a quiet march. It was a scene full of life, energy, and anticipation. Everywhere the young teacher, Jesus of Nazareth, traveled, news of his deeds spread like wildfire. The people talked of wondrous things, of the blind receiving their sight, the lame leaping for joy, and broken hearts finding peace. Hope moved ahead of him, like a bright light in a dark world. His disciples walked close to him, listening, while ordinary men, women, and children crowded around, eager just to hear his voice or touch the hem of his garment. As the day moved toward afternoon, the travelers approached a small city named Nain, resting quietly on the slopes of Mount Moor. It was an unassuming town, surrounded by simple stone walls and a single main gate. From a distance, Nain seemed peaceful, cradled by the gentle landscape. But as Jesus drew near the city entrance, the atmosphere suddenly changed. Two entirely different worlds were about to collide at the threshold of the stone gate. From outside the city came the crowd following Jesus, energized, celebrating life, and walking in the light of God's presence. But coming through the city gates was a second crowd, slow, heavy, and wrapped in deep, dark shadows. This second procession was a march of death. At the center of the crowd was a young man lying cold and still upon a wooden burial frame or bier. Wrapped tightly in white linen, he was being carried out of the city toward the tombs cut into the rocky hillside. Behind the bier walked a solitary woman. She wore the dark, textured linen robes of mourning, her head bowed low, tears falling freely onto the dusty earth. She was a widow, and the young man being carried away was her only son. To understand her pain, one must understand her world. Years before, she had buried her husband. In ancient times, losing a husband meant losing a protector, a provider, and a secure place in society. Her heart had broken then, but God had left her one ray of light, her son. She had raised him with care. She had watched him grow into a strong young man who worked the fields to provide for them both. He was her comfort, her security, and her hope for the future. Every smile of his was a reminder that she was not abandoned. Now, sickness had taken him away. Her last earthly hope was gone. As the gates of Nain opened, this poor widow was not just losing her child. She was facing a cold world entirely alone, without family, without income, and without hope. Neighbors and friends from the town walked beside her, carrying simple instruments and playing slow, sad melodies. They wept with her, offering what little comfort human hands could give. Yet, as kind as their presence was, none of them could lift the crushing weight from her chest. The procession moved steadily toward the graveyard outside the walls, step by quiet, mournful step. Then, the two crowds came to a complete halt near the heavy wooden doors of the gate. Jesus stood at the front of his followers. Among the noise of the weeping multitude and the shuffling feet, his gaze passed over the onlookers, past the city guards, and landed directly upon the broken mother. The scriptures record a profound truth. When the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her. He did not see her as just another stranger in a crowd. He saw her lonely past, her present heartbreak, and her frightening future. Jesus did not wait for someone to ask him for help. The widow had not spoken to him. She had not asked for a sign. Her grief was far too heavy for words. But his love moved even before she knew how to ask. Stepping out from his disciples, Jesus walked directly to the grieving widow. He looked at her tear-stained face, and in a voice filled with gentle warmth, he spoke two simple words. "Weep not." These words were not spoken in harshness, but in divine mercy. Jesus was not demanding that she suppress her grief. He was promising her that her time of sorrow was about to end. Jesus turned away from the mother and walked up to the wooden bier where the dead youth lay. Under the ancient laws, touching a dead body or even a coffin would make a person ceremonially unclean. Strict tradition dictated that people step back. The bearers carrying the bier froze in surprise. A murmur ran through the crowd, but Jesus reached out his hand without hesitation and touched the wood. Life was stepping into the deepest darkness. A sudden, heavy silence fell over the gate of Nain. All motion ceased. Hundreds of eyes focused on the young teacher, standing authoritatively in front of the bearers. Time itself seemed to stop at this divine intersection. Looking at the cold, lifeless form, Jesus spoke his powerful command. "Young man, I say unto thee, arise." Instantly, the chill of death vanished. Breath rushed back into the young man's lungs. His chest rose. The color returned to his pale cheeks. His eyes fluttered open, looking up into the blue sky. Straightway, the young man sat upright on the wooden bier. Death lost its grip in an instant before the Creator of life. The youth began to speak, his voice a sound of life outside the city of the dead. Jesus did not claim glory for himself. Instead, the scriptures record an intensely tender action. Jesus took the young man by the hand and presented him back to his mother. The mother gasped as she wrapped her arms around her living son. Can you imagine that embrace? The mother who had stepped out to bury her only child now holds him tight, feeling the warmth of his pulse and the breath in his body. Sorrow turned instantly into incomprehensible joy. A profound, holy awe fell upon everyone present. Whispers of wonder turned into triumphant shouts of joy. The people praised God, saying, "A great prophet has appeared among us," and "God has visited his people." The sound of wailing flutes was replaced by dynamic songs of praise. News of this miracle did not stay within the town walls. It traveled far across the dusty roads, through Galilee, Judea, and the surrounding countryside. The miracle at the gates of Nain is more than a history lesson from long ago. It is a promise for our lives today. Notice that Jesus did not go to Nain because a great ruler invited him. He did not go there for fame. He walked miles into an obscure town to meet a nameless, heartbroken widow at her absolute lowest moment. He sees your quiet tears also. When all hope seems lost, remember that Jesus is the resurrection and the life. His word brings hope out of darkness, and His mercy endures. If this story brought hope to your heart today, like and subscribe to join our journey through God's Word. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that they are never alone, and drop a comment below so we can pray with you. God bless you.